everyone. Welcome to another candidate interview in chillTV's continuing coverage of the BC 2020 election, presented by Simpson Notaries. Today, I'm welcoming Josue Anderson, who's running as an independent candidate in the riding of Chilliwack. Now, Josue, being a candidate in any provincial election is a tough job. Running as an independent is additionally challenging because people don't really get to understand what the platform and the profile is. Why don't we start by a little bit of why you've chosen to run, who you are, and what makes you tick?
Thanks, Clint. First of all, side note, Simpson's Notary actually is my notary for my mortgage. They do fantastic work, so I'm really happy that they gave you guys an endorsement.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, they're not giving me any money. They did a good job with providing service to me. So that's the fun, small world type of thing. So that's neat. So for myself, I am a small business owner. I would consider myself a small business capitalist. By that, I mean that I'm retired at the age of 30. I don't need to work at all to sustain my lifestyle one bit, which is the literal definition of a capitalist. But in that same way, given a lot of free time, you get the opportunity to think about what's really important. I think for many people within this pandemic, they're kind of in the same boat. When you don't have as many distractions in life, you start to pay attention a little bit more. You start to realize how the world is working and in many ways how the world isn't working. Climate change has always been something that is extremely important to me. The three most important issues that I am running for in this election and that I'm very passionate about are income or wealth inequality, climate change, and Indigenous sovereignty. Those are the three most important issues to me in BC, and if any of the political parties in this province were capable or willing to address those things effectively, I probably wouldn't be running if we had that kind of leadership in the legislature, but sadly I don't think we do. I spent as much time as I could doing research and exploring the best thing that I could be doing with my time. What's my role in this province dealing with these issues, especially when it comes to climate change? And anyone who's been in that same boat knows that you go to the organizations and you do the research and you try to connect on a local level and you try to do your best, and they'll kind of all tell you the same thing. You know, it's great what we're doing. This is important work. And it's nice that you're doing it, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. Because we all know that the real change that's going to make a difference in terms of us effectively combating climate change needs to happen at the legislature. It needs to happen in Parliament. The government action that needs to happen for any substantial change in terms of our effectiveness at dealing with climate change is so prolific that it's creating a generation of climate anxiety where we don't believe we can actually do it.
So let me jump in. There's at least one party I'm aware of, and perhaps two, that have climate change on their agenda.
Yeah.
Why not simply support one of those parties in a fairly significant way? Why does Josue have to say, okay, I need to be an independent because they're not talking enough about this?
Yeah, no, if the political infrastructure that we had in BC was capable of creating the kind of change that the parties themselves will advocate for, I would just participate in political parties as best that I could. The Greens probably be the closest, though my general problem on a philosophical level with the Greens is that they don't really have a cohesive worldview that they're offering. They kind of pull from too wide of a tent. So it's very difficult for me to know what I'm prescribing to or assisting with. Sometimes they are painfully conservative, and sometimes they're rather far left. And that inability to decide a philosophical viewpoint, I think, for myself and probably a lot of other people and voters, is disheartening. But in terms of their effectiveness as a party in the legislature, we have seen 3 years ago how ineffective the Green Party has been. They had the opportunity 3 years ago to hold Horgan by the fire and really force the kind of climate change and the type of policies that would have made a substantial difference 3 years ago. They didn't need to sign any agreement. They believed Horgan at face value when he said that he was willing to work with them, and we've seen for 3 years an increase in emissions that are far greater than what the Liberals were able to do within a similar time period. We have more fracking in BC causing more emissions in our province than anywhere else in Canada. So that's with the Horgan government.
So let's focus in on more local issues. What do you think Those are global issues. Those are national and provincial issues. Absolutely no question.
Sure.
Voters in Chilliwack, in the Chilliwack riding, are going to be looking at candidates to say, okay, what happens locally in Chilliwack? What do you think are the key issues that are facing people that are specific to Chilliwack?
And, that's a really good question, Clint. Like, that's a very good question. I think that it is important that we have an important conversation in BC about all of our active participation within provincial issues. I think that one of the types of poisons that I've seen in political apparati is that the feedback mechanisms and the way to acquire power is often highly localized, so that the kind of candidates we end up choosing and the types of talking points we end up focusing on tend to really just benefit our personal communities, and that is often at the expense of the provincial issues that only the province can solve. It's only when we talk about the provincial scales on homelessness and climate change and wealth inequality that we are capable of actually electing candidates that have the means and the will to address those issues. So I think it can often be very much to our collective detriment when too much of the conversation is steered towards our hyperlocal issues, though not to say that they're not important, but I think in many ways municipal conversations and municipal candidates and municipal elections are far more powerful and far more important in those types of localized conversations. And I would actively do my absolute best in the legislature to empower municipalities to be able to better address local issues. Obviously, there's infrastructure projects which are provincial-wide, like the Highway 1 expansion, which is very important. But by and large, the city of Chilliwack knows what's best for Chilliwack. Yeah, and I would do my best in legislature to make sure the province empowers municipalities such as ours so they're not perpetually tied up and begging and asking the province for more assistance. That's not in anyone's best interest.
So what do you think then? We've talked about climate change, we've talked about the environment, we've talked about, as you just said, empowering local governments. You're wearing emblazoned on your t-shirt a symbol of something I'm assuming you feel somewhat
pretty passionate about. Yeah.
Passionate about.
Yeah.
What's your solution for ICBC?
If you were able to catch the co-work debates last night, had a whole bunch of fun. I think everyone on stage had a whole bunch of fun making fun of ICBC, maybe with the exception of the Liberal and the NDP candidates. But everyone tends to have a very unified opinion when it comes to ICBC, and I'm no difference there. As far as policy changes go, in some ways I actually do agree with the Libertarian platform, which was then taken by the Conservatives at whole face value. We should have private competition in BC. Where I am a little bit different is that I am sympathetic to the arguments that you can't just give 100% free rein powers to private entities. It doesn't matter whether it's a private car firm or a giant oil subsidiary that is here to extract our resources for their profits and their shareholders. So what I argue for is effective and intelligent regulations on a private competitor that can ensure safe and reliable insurance to the benefit of consumers. But given how many people in BC hate ICBC, it is a gold mine here in BC. Private firms will absolutely jump through any hoops that we set up to get a substantial amount of consumers and clients, millions of clients in the first year. I mean, every private firm would be itching to get those, and they'd be willing to jump through hoops to make sure that BC is safe, competitive, and providing services in the best interest of everyone.
I want to thank you for taking some time to come and chat with me today. I think some of the things you've talked about are things that are really important to a lot of people in this community, and they're important to a lot of people in British Columbia. I would like to thank everyone for watching. We'll be providing more interviews through the election season. Stay tuned to chillTV for that. And be sure to mark your calendars for chillTV's October 24th BC 2020 election night coverage, presented, of course, by Simpson Notaries, starting at 7:30 p.m., about 30 minutes before the polls close. I'm going to be joined by Bud Mercer, who's a current sitting city councillor and someone that I enjoy spending time with and talking politics, so we should have a good time. Lehn, who your chillTV viewers are more than aware of, and a number of guests that we'll be announcing later this week. So thanks so much for watching.